Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Prabhupada Paramahansa Prabhupada Acharya Stotra Siddha Shri Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON BBD Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki, Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Nitai Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 11, Text 25. Sorry, 24. The chapter name, Calculation of Time from the Atom. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tadojaya Mudiraye Nashta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevayam Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtuki. Text 24, is it on the board? Yes. Okay. Please repeat after me. Swam, Swam, Kalam, Manur, Bhunkte, Sadikam, Hi, Eka, Saptatim. Swam Swam Kalam Manurbhukte Sadikam Hi Eka Saptam Eka Saptatim. Swam Swam Kalam Manurbhukte Sadikam Hi Eka Saptatim. Swam Swam Kalam Manurbhukte Sadikam Hi Eka Saptatim. Prabhuji's. Swam Swam Kalam Manurbhukte Sadikam Hi Eka Saptatim. Swam Swam Kalam Manurbhukte Sadikam Hi Eka Saptatim. Sadikam Hi Eka Saptatim. Mataji's. Swam Swam Kalam Manurbhukte Sadikam Hi Eka Saptatim. Transliteration, please repeat after me. Swam, own. Swam, accordingly. Kalam, duration of life. Manu, Bhunkte, enjoys. Sadikam, a little more than. Hai, certainly. Ek Saptatim, 71. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Translation: each and every Manu enjoys a life of a little more than 71 sets of 4 millenniums. Please repeat after me. Each and every Manu enjoys a life of a little more than 71 sets of 4 millenniums. Purport: the duration of life of a Manu comprises 71 sets of 4 millenniums, as described in Vishnu Puran. The duration of life of one Manu is about 852,000 years in the calculation of the demigods, or in the calculation of human beings, 306,720,000 years. Did I get that right? Thank you. All right. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Salakya Chakshur Militamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shuddhapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajadam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Scha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimade Bhaktivedanta Swami iti namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prasharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pashyatitesha Tarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyasha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvise Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kantha Radha Kantha Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master opened my eyes to the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Tavai vasmi, tavai iti vignya devi tvam navam charanantikam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to morning Bhagavatam class. Today we are discussing the lifespan of Manu. So here we are continuing the conversation between Maitreya Muni and Vidura. In previous verses, we saw the time, the definition of time, and how a sun god regulates, Vivashwan regulates everything, and then Maitreya Muni Vidura asked about planetary systems which are not destroyed by the partial dissolution. And now we are discussing the lifespan of Manu. Manu are the progenitors. You know, they are the word Manushya comes from Manu. Manushya means human. Human beings, and since Manu is the father of the mankind, so the mankind is named after Manu. And Manu is a posting. It's not a person per se, it's a posting. Like we have posting like the president, prime minister, so similarly Manu is a posting. And different great personalities, according to their qualification, they fill those postings. And sometimes there's no qualified person, so Krishna himself takes that posting. And so the example is in a Swayambhuva Manu. During the first Manvantara, there was not much qualified person, so Krishna himself expanded as Swayambhuva Manu. So there are 14 Manus in one Brahma's day. So maybe we'll go, I'm sure people in previous verses have described it top down. Let's go bottom up this time. So 108,000 is the 108,000 is the, what's the word? Coefficient factor. And if you multiply 108,000 times 4, you get 432,000. And that becomes Kali Yuga. So the 108,000 you multiply by 4 times 2, then 432 times 2, which is 864, 100,000 years, that becomes what Yuga? Dwapara Yuga. And similarly, 108,000 times 4 times 2 times 2, whatever the number is, 16 something, will become Treta Yuga. And then similarly, 108 times 4 times 2 times 2 times 2, that'll be Satya Yuga, that'll be 32 something, that'll be Satya Yuga. So that's called one Yuga cycle. So starting from bottom up, you got Kali Yuga, which we are in, and then Dwapara Yuga, then Dwapara Yuga before that Treta Yuga, and Treta Yuga before that is Satya Yuga. And so 71 of this Yuga cycles makes one lifetime of a Manu. So we did all this multiplication, so 16 something comes times 71 and a little bit more. Here it says, Prabhupada says, the purport says, sorry, not the purport, the verse says, a little more than, sa adhikam, just a little over 71 cycles, or 71 times, so 71.2 or 3, I'm not sure what is that little more, times this Yuga cycle is the lifespan of one Manu. So there are 14 Manus in one day of Brahma. And that one day of Brahma is called Kalpa. And then during that one day of Brahma, then Brahma goes to sleep. So there's a partial dissolution where all the planetary systems below, made up of Bhur, Bhuva and Swa, gets annihilated. And when Brahma wakes up, again, a new Manu is, takes birth. Along with the new Manu, whenever a new Manu takes birth, Indra, Chandra, and all the demigods also appear along with them. So they all appear all together. So these, let's see about this, let's have a quick look about this 14 Manus. The 14 Manus are, first Manu, who is Swayambhuva Manu. He is called Swayambhuva Manu because he was born from Brahma. Brahma is called Swayambhu. Swayambhu means one who self-manifested without a mother. So that's why he's called Swayambhu, one who appeared himself. So Brahma appeared in the lotus, on top of a lotus flower, which was sprouting out of the navel of Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. So he's called Swayambhu. Swayambhu, even the Mahajanastak, Mahajanoyena Katasta Panta, where Swayambhu, Narada, so Swayambhu is Brahma. So Swayambhuva Manu is the son of Brahma. So he's the son of Swayambhu. So he's called Swayambhuva, son of Swayambhu. It's called Swayambhuva Manu. So he is the first Manu. And we could have seen his pastimes in the beginning of third canto. Swayambhuva Manu, his daughter is Devahuti, his wife is Satsarupa, and then they go and find a suitable husband for, Swayambhuva Manu goes and finds a suitable husband for his daughter. And Swayambhava Manu is also called a Mahajan. He's considered one of the custodians of devotional service. He's considered a Mahajan. And being a custodian of devotional service and also the progenitor, he also wrote a book called Manu Smriti, Manu Samhita or Manu Smriti, which are the rules and regulations, the codes by which the mankind should function. It's a law book which was written by Manu. So in this law book written by Manu, he talks about varnas and various ashramas. He talks about the duties of these varnas and ashramas, how they should behave. And next, after the varnas and ashrama, is women. So he talks about the duty of women, and he talks about performing various rites and rituals, for a person's upliftment. He talks about charity, how to give charity, how animals, cows should be looked after, how the horses should be looked after. So all these moral rules and regulations are dictated by Manu through this Manu Samhita book. This might be a bit controversial, but nowadays the feminists within our society, they call Manu as a demon. How is that possible? Because he says certain rules and regulations which the modern women doesn't want to, they think it's inferior or infuriating to the women. So they think Manu is a horrible person. Even I personally heard somebody, a so-called devotee, told me Manu is a demon because he's putting down women. He's the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And if he says that, that's it. There is no, if Manu says this is how it should be, this is how it should be. So, one should be very careful not to question the authority based on our own understanding. So it's quite offensive, actually. So so the Manu Samhita is a very authoritative book, and we are talking about 71 yuga cycles times the 4 yugas, and we are in seventh Manvantara. So 7 times of all this was the first Manu, and he wrote Manu Samhita that long ago. So this is millions and millions of years ago. This book of rules and regulations were written, and this rule and regulations was followed by everyone after Swayambhava Manu. So how authoritative this scripture is written by Manu. So it's been followed for millions of years. So now people come and they think they're very intelligent, and they start blaspheming something which was followed by great personalities for millions of years. So one has to be very careful. So that's how glorious Swayambhava Manu is. And Swayambhava Manu is not just an ordinary person, he's actually the incarnation of the Lord. All other Manus are considered Shakti Avesha avatars, or the empowered personalities. But in some instances, Swayambhava Manu is actually described as a direct incarnation of the Lord, because there was no one to take up the position. So it's Krishna himself appears as Swayambhava Manu and instructs the world. So after Swayambhava Manu comes Swarochasa, if I remember right, Swarochasa Manu. And after Swarochasa Manu, he rules for 71 yuga cycles. And after Swarochasa Manu is Uttama Manu. And then after Uttama Manu's period comes Tamasa Manu. And after Tamasa Manu comes Ritajwa, I can't remember, Manu. And then after comes Shakshushva Manu. Shakshushva Manu is the predecessor, the Manu before the current Manu. And Shakshushva Manu has, in his lifespan, something out of norm happens. Brahma usually, gets up in the morning, and this he works whole day and goes back to sleep in the evening, and when he goes back to sleep in the evening, the dissolution happens. But during Sakshishva Manu's period, Brahma feels a bit tired in the middle of the day. So he takes a nap, a snooze. And then since he takes a snooze, there's partial dissolutions happens within Sakshishva Manu. So there's 2 dissolutions in Sakshishva Manu. And after Sakshishva Manu comes the current Manu, who is Vivashvata Manu. So if you do Sankalpa, do you know anybody knows what Sankalpa is? Sankalpa is when you do a yagya, or if you're going to perform any Vedic rituals, you take a vow. It's more like a commitment. And during the commitment, you kind of say, Setavaraha Kalpe, Kali Yuga, Vaivashrata Manvantre, Kali Yuga Yam, and then particular, this Ritu, whatever the season is, and this Krishna Pakshe or Gaura Pakshe, and then Ekadashi Tithi or whatever Tithi, and then so you kind of tell the current time period before I'm performing this yagya or something. So when we do that, when we do a vivaha karma, any yagyas we perform, so we say Sweta Varaha Kalpa. So this Kalpa, this 1,000 years, or this day of Brahma is the day when the Varaha appeared, who was Sweta, white in color. So the incarnation of Varaha is white in color. There are other incarnations of Varaha where he is red in color, or whatever other colors. I know of red, and this one is Sweta. I don't know what other colors he appeared. So this Kalpa, the Varaha avatar, he's white in color, Sweta Varaha Kalpe. And then Vaivashrata Manvantre. So we are in Vaivashrata Manvantra. And he's the current Manu. And even that, what is it, 28? Something 28 cycles. Out of the 71, 28 has passed of the Vaivashrata Manu. And so 27 has passed, or 27 has passed, and we are on the 28th of the 71 cycle. And Vaivashrata Manu, he has other names like Satyajit. He has another name as Vamana. He's not, don't confuse him with the Vamana incarnation. It's another name of this Vaivashrata Manu. Vaivashrata Manu, he gets the name Vaivashrata because he is the son of Vivashwan. And what is that verse in Bhagavad Gita 4:1? Bhagavan Vacha Imam Vivashvate Yogam Praktavan Avyayam. What is Praktavan? Aham Avyayam Vivashvan Manu Prahi. So the verse goes like that. So where Krishna says, I instructed this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to Vivashvan, and Vivashvan instructed to his son Vaivashvata. So the son of Vivashvan is called Vaivashvata. So his actual name is Satyavrata, I think, and he ruled from southern track of Bharatavarsha, which is Dravida Desh, which is South India. He ruled from South India. He kept his headquarters in South India. The Satyavrata Manu. And Satyavrata Manu has the pastime with also Matsya. So I guess I'm sure the Matsya avatar happens in every millennium, but for this cycle, the Satyavrata Manu finds the little fish in a river called Vaigai River, which flows in Madurai district, a holy place called Madurai, or it's called Southern Madura, South Madura, and there's a river called Madurai, and where he found the Matsya fish and the pastime. We all know how the Matsya pastime goes for this millennium. So that's Vaivashrata Manu. And after Vaivashrata Manu comes Swarni Manu. And after Swarni Manu comes Daksha. Daksha Prajapati. We all have heard of Daksha. I don't know if the pastime comes later. I think the pastime comes later, where Daksha is the father-in-law of Shiva, and he's the father of Sati, and he offends Shiva. Because he offends Shiva, he gets beheaded by Shiva's entourage. And Daksha is the brother of Swayambhava Manu, or the father, son of Brahma. And after he gets killed, he recognizes his offense and he worships Shiva till the Sakshishva Manu. And Shiva gets pleased. Shiva can be easily pleased, even though he really offended Shiva. He has a tendency when he's spoken nicely of praised, he gets easily pleased. So after 6 manvantras, he forgave Daksha, and after Shwarni Manu, Daksha appears as the next Manu. And so before we go into Daksha Manu, the Swarni Manu is the time when Bali Maharaj becomes the Indra. So Bali Maharaj is waiting in Sutalaloka, thank you. And he's waiting in Sutalaloka, and he becomes the next Indra in the next Manvantra, in Swarni Manu's Manvantra. And after Swarni Manu's Manvantra comes, as I mentioned, Dakshas. After Dakshas comes Brahma Swarni Manvantra. After Brahma Swarni Manvantra comes Dharma Swarni Manvantra. After Dharma Swarni Manvantra comes Deva Swarni Manvantra. Did I cover all the 14? Anybody kept the count? Did I miss out any Manu? No? Huh? I think Ajita is one of the names of the Manu. Like, for example, the Vaivashada Manu's name is Satyajit or something. Similarly, I think Ajita is one of the names of the Manu. So I think we covered all the Manus. So, then we have this 14 Manus. And so again, it's not that simple, just 14 Manus. There are also between every 71 cycle of every one Manu's time, there is also something called Manvantara Sandhi. Sandhi means, anybody knows Hindi alphabets, Sandhi means it's when two things join. When you join two alphabets, so it's called a Sandhi. Sandhi. So when, like for example, we say Sandhya, in the evening, Sandhya, that's why when Smartas do Sandhya Vandana, the Brahmanas do Sandhya Vandana during when the day meets the night, where the dawn meets the dusk, or there's Brahma Muhurta, which is also a Sandhya, and then in the evening, the dawn meets dusk, that's another Sandhya, where the day meets night. Similarly, there's also Sandhi between each Manvantras. So from one Manu finishes, the other Manu starts. There's also those Sandhis, and they usually go for 17 million lives, 17 million years. I don't know if 17 million is according to our years or according to the years of demigods, 17 odd something. People, you can look it up. So there's those Sandhis. I think there are 15 Sandhis. There's 14 Manvantras, and there's 15 Manvantra Sandhis. That is one before and one after, then after, and then after, then after. So it starts with the Sandhi. So there is 15 Sandhis, and that makes one day of Brahma. And then we can see that's a lifespan of, and then Brahma lives 100 of those, not 100, what do you call? What is that? Then those 71, those 1 day times 1,000 becomes his month, and then a year, and then you can see times 100 is his lifetime. That's a lifetime of Brahma. So that's how complex it is. These details are clearly described. There's Bhagavatam touches these things, and also Vishnu Purana talks about it. Garuda Purana, all those Puranas, they all touch these concepts. The detailed description of these ones are given by our own Parapara Guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in his book Surya Siddhanta. In his book called Surya Siddhanta, he details all these timelines about various Manus and their life cycles and things like that. So you can see how elaborate description of different rulers of this planet are provided. And naturally, these Manus are Kshatriyas. They come from the Vaivashrata Manu, the current Manu. He comes from Vivashwan. It's a Kshatriya dynasty. Generally, Kshatriyas are given the knowledge. You can't sit like that in front of deities. Yes, usually the Kshatriyas are provided with the knowledge because they are ruling the mankind, so they can ensure the mankind follows the knowledge which is required for them to go back to Godhead. So that's why the verse which I quoted before, 4.1, where Krishna says, "I've instructed this to Vivashwan and Vivashwan." In the beginning of Treta Yuga, he instructs this to Vaivashrata Manu. Same thing is mentioned in similar verses also in Shanti Parva and Mahabharata, where it is said that in Treta Yuga, and this instruction didn't happen in Satya Yuga. It happened actually in Treta Yuga. In Treta Yuga, Krishna instructs Vivashwan, and Vivashwan instructs Vaivashrata Manu. And then Vaivashrata Manu instructs Ishwagu, and Ishwagu instructs, and then comes the Raghu dynasty. Raghu dynasty is where Lord Ramachandra appears. So all the kings are empowered or given this knowledge. Generally we say, Brahmanas, when you think about it in logical sense, Brahmanas have the knowledge. But when you look at it, actually the Kshatriyas are the ones who are given the knowledge because they are the ones who can ensure the society follows. If the society doesn't follow, the Brahmanas can't do much. They don't have a regulative authority. And they're not going to go around cursing people. The only power a Brahmana has is they can, go and curse. The Brahmana can tell you, so please follow the scriptures, and live according to the moral code. But, if a person chooses not to follow, they can't do much. And they generally, Brahmanas are very soft-hearted. And so they're not going to really go cursing people. The cursing instances are very rare instances. They're generally very paradukhaduki, very, soft-hearted. So, they're not going to, really put their foot down to ensure the human society follows these instructions. But the Kshatriyas, on the other hand, they have the authority to, force people to follow in the right direction. Even, for example, it's a complete mundane example. The chief medical officer, for example, I'm not getting into right or wrong business, I'm just giving it as an example. The chief medical officer says, the pandemic is in, so people should take vaccine. But they can't enforce it. Now, the chief medical officer can just give you the advice. The enforcement is done by the people who are in authority. The chief minister or the premier or the prime minister, they are the one who can mandate it. And they say, you have to take vaccine, or you have to wear the mask, or you have to maintain social distancing. So there's a difference between a Brahmana giving the instructions of scriptures and a Kshatriya giving instruction of scriptures. Does that make sense? Brahmana gives only the knowledge. Say this is how it should be. And the Kshatriya makes sure that this is how it should be is actually followed. And if the person doesn't follow, then the Kshatriya has authority to punish him or force them to do it. That's why the Vedic knowledge is instructed more precisely to Kshatriyas, so that the Kshatriyas can ensure the civilization follows the rules and regulations properly. By following these rules and regulations, what happens is the society maintains a peaceful equilibrium. Manu Samhita says, you have to do this, you have to do that. These are the rules of a brahmachari, these are the rules of a grihastha, these are the rules of a vanaprastha, these are the rules of a sannyasi, and these are the rules of a brahmana, a kshatriya. So all these rules, a kshatriya, even though the brahmana educates, the kshatriya is the one who ensures the society follows. The enforces. The enforces. But if they don't enforce, the society falls into a collapse, a chaos. And when there is chaos in the society, there is no peace. And when there is no peace, there is no impetus for spiritual progress. If you're just just plunderers running around, there's things out of control, there's even some simple things like this, pest control, there's animals running around wild. So the human society cannot be in peace. So unless you're in peace, you can't perform spiritual life in a systematic way. The spiritual life is a systematic process. It's not, every atheist worships God when a plane goes down. You know what I'm saying? It's not like it is not like the atheist version of worshipping that only in emergency you come to God. No, worship is a systematic process. Even the bhakti process, or in previous ages the varnashram process, it's a very systematic process. To do a systematic process, you need to be in a reasonably peaceful condition of life. That's why varnashram is so important, because varnashram places one in a peaceful platform. So there is no anxiety. You don't need to worry about what career I need to get into, how my next food is going to come. The system is set up in such a way an individual feels peace. There is calmness. And so people know that even a sannyasi, who has given up everything, he knows that it doesn't matter any house he goes in front and asks for bhiksham, for alms. He knows, according to the rules, a grahastha should give them alms. So he doesn't need to be in anxiety where his next food is coming from. And nowadays, for example, if you take sannyas in the Western society, you go and knock on somebody's door, they'll shoot you. Or they tell you to go away. So the sannyasi doesn't have the, in ideal sense, and ISKCON sannyasi is a different story. But in a true sense, sannyasi is dependent on going and getting alms. At the same time, a Vaishya can't go and get alms. It's considered a fallen state for a Vaishya to go and beg. So that's why Vaishyas don't beg. Even Brahmanas gets donation. They don't necessarily beg. They get donation. People donate to them. They seek out Brahmanas and donate to them. Brahmacharis go and beg. But a grahastha cannot beg. Grahasthas cannot beg. For a grahastha to go and beg, it's very humiliating. It's considered very humiliating for a grahastha to go and beg. So there's a structure in the society set up in such a way that a person doesn't need to feel anxious. That's considered ideal society, where an individual is not feeling anxiety. So when an individual is not feeling anxiety, where he's worried where his next meal is going to come, who's going to protect him, where is his wife going to come, and all these are anxiety. If you're not part of a structured society. So by being in this structured society, one becomes, peace. The element of peace is introduced. Unless there is peace, there is no happiness. You need to be peaceful to become happy. You can't become happy without having the underlining element of peace. And of course, happy, there's material happiness and there's also spiritual happiness. And in that state, one can perform devotional service in a systematic way. So they gradually can grow their spiritual life. They can consciously battle their anarthas. Everybody has different anarthas, different misgivings, and they can deal with it in a sane way and gradually progress. So through this way of progression, the element of fall down is very less, because it happens in a very systematic way. Say, for example, if you're asked to run a marathon, which is 42 kilometers, 42 miles or something, you can't immediately run. But if you train, gradually, then you'll be in a position to comfortably run. Doesn't matter how healthy you are, if you're asked to run 42 miles. So similarly, having a society without varnashram, without these rules and regulations, is expecting a person to run a marathon, it makes it difficult. Even though you have the privilege of holy name and Bhagavatam, but since we don't have that backup, it becomes a bit hard. That's why you can see people, one day you're good, one day you're bad. One day you come to Mangaladi, next day you sleep in. We struggle. But when a society, followed through the rules and regulations, is trained in such a way, they can consistently perform devotional service. Consistency is very important. Even in the definition of bhakti, and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the word consistent, it's performed regularly. Regular performance of bhakti is important. That's one of the attributes of bhakti, that it is performed regularly. So these systems are in place. Manu Samhita, with the Varnashram concept, they are in place so that a person can perform devotional service in a consistent manner. It encourages them. Not only perform, also it encourages them. Encourages them to perform a proper way of life. Encourage in the sense, everybody goes to sleep at 8 o'clock. Then naturally you wake up in the morning. So that encourages. So the system encourages. Now the society lets, you can go to pub and hang around till midnight, 11, 12, 1 o'clock. Then naturally you can't wake up in the morning. But having a proper system, mandated by various kings, it forces, cut off, after 9 o'clock, everybody is asleep. So naturally, you need 6 to 7 hours sleep. Even the most sleepy person needs 8 hours. So automatically you're awake. in the morning hours. You know? So that's why all these instructions are given to the Kshatriyas, so they can enforce it to the common public. So without these laws, these religious moral codes, the human society is just merely animal society. They behave, human beings, without this moral code, just behave like animals, which we can see. They go get drunk, or till 1 o'clock at night, and illicit sex, intoxication, and they just do whatever they want, and the government is not monitoring it. They are not putting a curfew in it. Now, for example, they introduced curfew in Darlinghurst a few years ago, but there's so many protests going on about it. But when there's a proper king, when there's a strong, powerful king, there's rules and regulations. So the human beings, with their natural tendency of becoming animals, they are, shifted to a more regulated lifestyle, and regulation automatically leads to sattva guna, and sattvam also urdhvam gacchati sattvatva. By being in sattva guna, urdhva means you are going upwards. You're going upwards. Even to heavenly planet, doesn't matter, but at least there is happiness. There's limited, it's not miserable, or going into hellish planets. There's upliftment of the soul into some level. So that's why there's a systematic way how things work. So we should be careful and not questioning, why is it, I'm equal, I'm this, I'm that. Why is Manu saying that, we should do this, we should do, It's all very systematically set up so the society can function. One might, from their very limited view, might think, this might sound, this doesn't sound fair to me. This doesn't sound fair to me. But from a holistic view, the whole material world is not here to make you fair. It's here to get you out of this material world. So it's not about the matter of fair or not, it's a matter of what is the right thing which will make me peaceful and make the peace, not just me, society in by large, peaceful, and then where human beings can go through this process and purify themselves. So it's a more holistic view. It's not about the individual. But now, the age we live in, it's all about me. I don't know, the 16-year-old goes to the court and says, I don't want to be under the control of parents. I want to be, there's a term for it, where they liberate themselves from the parents. So now they are if they go and do that in a court, and they are considered adult, they are allowed to make their own decisions. It's all about the individual, what happens now. But the Vedic society is about the holistic view. The Vedic society considers everybody as criminal, and we all have to take up certain tasks or regulations. So we curtail our misgivings and then progressively go forward. It's like, for example, like an army. If you're in an army, you can't say, I don't want to follow orders, I'm an individual, I'm better than her, or she is better than me, or I'm better than her, he's better than me, or I'm better than her, so I need special, and I want to be this. Now, then the army won't march forward. There'll be chaos. So the Manu has very rightfully designed all these mechanisms, how the various ashramas and various varnas perform their activities, various, how the Sri Dharma, how a woman operates, what are her roles, what are her duties. These are all, very carefully delineated so that things work in a regulated fashion. And Swayambhava Manu is, starting from Swayambhava Manu, they were ruling, and Vaivasudha Manu, they are ruling according to these moral injunctions which elevate a person towards spiritual life, moves them towards Krishna. One might ask, changing the topic slightly, one might ask, Srimad Bhagavatam is supposed to be a scripture on spiritual life. It should be talking about bhakti, it should be talking about Krishna's pastimes, Radharani's pastimes. Why it is talking about time? Why it is talking about all this different ages and things like that? Because all these ages, all these Manus, they all somehow or other link back to Krishna. They all, there's always some connection to Krishna. So, one might ask, why doesn't it teach string theory? Why doesn't it teach theory of relativity? Bhagavatam, it talks about all those things. Because those things are mundane, they don't relate to Krishna. But these topics, somehow or other, relates back to Krishna. So as soon as it relates back to Krishna, even though from a mundane point of view, it's just talking about different planets and different times and calendars and zodiacs and the movements of the sun and astronomy, and from a mundane point of view it might look, but if you read through the lines, it's always somehow or other connecting back to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that connection to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is what purifies us. And that's why these topics have their place in Bhagavatam. And also you can see, Manu is living for 71 yuga cycles. What does he do? It's a long time. For even us, luckily if you're there for 60, 70, 80 years, that's a long time to live. You get quite bored. One of the biggest problem is boredom. And that's the thing, in Varnashram you don't get bored because you're performing your duty. You don't perform your duty, the king beats you up. So there's no boredom there. Everybody is performing their duty. And there's, the morning duty, evening duty, there's seasonal duties, everybody is performing their duty. But now, there's no duty we perform, and we can get easily bored. But in here, you can see Manu living for all this millions of lifetimes, he's living and ruling. And how does he doesn't get bored? I think it's in the 8th canto it is mentioned that the Swayambhava Manu, whenever he talks about the qualities and pastimes of the Lord. Every time he meditates on the pastimes of the Lord. So the Swayambhava Manu is fully engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. So when the devotional service is shares, it's ongoing. So he's performing devotional service. He's always situated happily. There's millions of pastimes of the Lord to think about and meditate on. There's millions of pastimes of the Lord to speak about. So there's unlimited. For example, if you watch a sitcom in the TV, after some time it runs out. After 10 seasons, 12 seasons, they take it off. If they don't get enough TRP, RTP, TRP, something, and it takes off. Then you can watch few reruns of it, and you get bored. But Krishna's pastimes are not like that. In every mantra he appears, and then he has Leela avatars, and he has Purusha avatars. These incarnations, what is that? It says in Brahma Samhita, his incarnations are like a bag of mustard, or like waves in the ocean. It's unlimited pastimes. So the Manu, for him, the 71 yuga cycles is nothing, because there's unlimited pastimes of the Lord he can meditate on, he can glorify on. And by glorifying and meditating on his pastime, he's actually relishing. He's not chewing the chewed. You watch a sitcom and then you again watch it and think, oh my God. There's nothing more. So it's not like that here. The Lord's pastimes are just ever fresh and ever giving. So the 71, if mundane people might think, oh, such a long time, what is he going to do? Is he going to be sitting there and depressed, morose, waiting for his time to die? Like every time I call my grandmother and she says, oh, I don't know, she's been 90 for the last 10 years. I don't know how old is she. Every time I ask her, she says, oh, I'm 90. She's been telling that for 10 years. I don't know how old is she. Those days they don't keep the time period, when they were born and all. Every time she comes, I talk to her and says, oh, Prahlad, why the day hasn't come? Why am I still here? So, that's not how Manu was leading his life. Manu was quite happily remembering the pastimes of the Lord, meditating on the pastimes of the Lord, speaking about the pastimes of the Lord, glorifying the Lord. So, and also making sure, he has a mission to make sure all the living entities are performing their duties according to the nature. So in this way, he keeps himself very happily, and that's a word here. It says bhungte. Bhungte is a word used. Bhungte is a similar word, same word used in nectar of instruction. Bhungte bhojyate. Yeah. So bhungte means enjoys. Here Manu is enjoying his life because he's always thinking about. These Manus are enjoying their life. They are not living a miserable life like us. We are borderline suicidal. We come to devotion life as last, tried everything, and we come to spiritual life. Here, that's not the case. He's bhungte. He's enjoying. That's a word used in this verse. Yeah, the last one, bhungte. So he's enjoying performing his, going through his life. So in that note, I will finish here. If you have any questions, comments, corrections, please. So that Prabhu raised his hand first. Go for it.
Probably just a couple of questions. Probably it's a pretty common question you might have heard about. Significance of number 108. How do you actually just telling that 108,000 multiplied by so and so, you actually get this whole age of this span of the yugas?
Yeah.
432, 864, 12.
Yeah, there are factors of 108. Yeah.
So, what's actually the significance? I mean, I've heard a number of times even in Japamala for 108.
Yeah.
And should I ask the second question?
Yeah, let's finish it. Do you have children?
Yeah, one more.
No, let me answer the question, then we can go to the next question, if it is okay. Do you have children? How many children you have? Two children. So, you have two children. So if you want to remember, if you want to keep a password or something, you name it after your children. Or if you have more than two children, you have those number of children, you use it as your password or use it as your, kind of a number, your number, to keep things in count or something. So Krishna has 108 gopis. And that's his favorite number of gopis. And so, and everything kind of comes from that, and everything is a factor of that 108. Now his deer, like for you, the deer are two children. So you use number two as, number two is insignificant to use. I'm just saying, kind of to get a given understanding. Or, if you have two children, you use your children's name as a password or something. Here, Krishna's favorite gopis are 108. So, in anything he does, it's always, 108 reflects.
So that's how it's connected.
That's how it's connected. There's 108 beats because 108 gopis, and then anything Krishna says, he does it because in relation with his loved ones. So he says, okay, I need to come up with the number of years. How many gopis are more dear to me? 108. Okay, 108 times 1,000 is my 1,000 years, and time make it 4. That's Kali Yuga times 2. This is so the 108 factor. And also it also helps us to also understand, remember Krishna and his pastimes. 108. It comes from 108 gopis. Krishna's intimate gopis. He has 16,108 wives. There's always 108. He likes this 108 because his favorite gopis are 108. So he's a person. So he acts like a person. He's not a robot. He has feelings. If it doesn't matter where you are, if somebody yells out your son's name or your daughter's name, it reminds you of your son and daughter. They may not be calling your son and daughter, but it reminds you of son and daughter because you're a person, you're a father. You have love towards your children. So similarly, these 108 are Krishna's very favorite, intimate, confident personalities. So to remember them or to help us remember them, he used, So nothing is by chance, it's all, there's something. That's my understanding. If there's a better understanding, you can enlighten me. Any better understandings?
What was the question?
Why 108 is special? What is your next question?
Just trying to understand, how do you perceive someone passing away? For example, you were talking about like Swami woman, he passed away after so and so time. Which you mentioned in the Bible. But when actually Krishna takes the incarnation, he actually appears as Swayambhuva Manu. How do you perceive that? How do you understand that? I mean, it's not like an elevated to you, right? It's actually Krishna himself.
Yeah, Krishna can expand himself. Even, what is that verse in Katha Upanishad, where Nachiketa is instructed. There's a super soul and there's an individual soul, and both are incarnations of Krishna. But one is limited and one is supreme. So Krishna can expand to any amount of forms where he can restrict his energy in certain places, he can increase his energy in some places. So, one of those places, Krishna, he sees a gap, there's nobody there, he steps into it. Okay, let's give a mundane example. There's a prime minister, and he sees in his cabinet there's not anyone qualified to be a defense minister or a home minister. So he takes up that role also. You know what I'm saying? He takes up that role also. It doesn't mean his original role is somewhat diminished, or his new role is not performing well. But he is qualified to act in both roles. Does that make sense? So Krishna, he can expand into unlimited forms, and that doesn't mean the Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purna, Purno Dachyate. He can, all his expansions are also complete. So when he expands himself into Swayambhuva Manu, he performs that role. And then when the period finishes, he winds up his pastime as Swayambhuva Manu, and he lets somebody else to take part. Yeah, it's a position, it's a role, as I mentioned in the beginning of the class. It's a position. He takes Like for example, I don't think so Hindu community or Indian community does it, but mostly a lot of the Australian community, they have regular jobs, regular families, and they also enrolled in the reserves, army reserves. Do you know that? The army reserves. They have, they're working in whatever the field is, and when they're called upon duty, they go on, and also every 6 months or every year they have to go and perform their reserve exercise, to keep themselves fit. It's not like they've given up their family life and joined the army, so they just perform that particular role when it is required. And when the role is not required, they go back to being their family man or their whatever profession is. So similarly, when there's a requirement, Krishna, expands himself as Swayambhu Manu, and he performs his duty. And when the role is not required, he withdraws that energy. He goes back performing his native,
Hard to perceive.
the Achintyam.
We actually always think eternal God. He is not thinking. He is actually eternal. But when he actually
But the thing is, it doesn't mean when Krishna becomes Swayambhu Manu, he stops being Krishna and stops performing his Vrindavan pastimes. That keeps going, that keeps happening. But it's not like when he incarnates here, Goloka Vrindavan is empty and everybody has gone on holidays. No, it's not like that. He is still performing his Nitya Leela there, and he also expands himself and performs his Leela here. Even in the Rasa Leela, Krishna expands into the 108, all the gopis are thinking that, he is dancing with me. Krishna is dancing with me. So he expands himself. It doesn't mean he loses the original, and he is the original. So, Krishna can expand himself. And it is achintya, it's inconceivable for mundane people. We can only understand or try to understand by mundane analogies, like the analogy I gave as a reserve, or the analogy I gave as a prime minister acting in two roles. So we can try to use these mundane analogies and try to get, it's an analogy, try to get an understanding. So how analogy works, and I'm running out of time. How analogy works is, if you don't know a concept, you're completely blind of that concept. How do I explain? So have you seen a platypus? You know what a platypus is? There's a lot of people, platypus is very rare to see. It's very rare, you could have seen in pictures or things like that. But if you want to describe somebody who hasn't seen a platypus, they say, oh, it has a beak, it has 4 legs, it's like a fish. But you're thinking, that doesn't sound right. A beak, only birds have a beak. A duck has a beak. A fish doesn't have a beak. But when you see, somebody describes that's how a platypus is. And when you see a platypus, and you say, oh yeah, that's a platypus, because analogically somebody told me that it has a beak, and it has a body of a fish, it has a body of a fish. That makes sense now. So now, we don't know all these concepts. We are just speaking and understanding it with our limited understanding, with the analogies, try to understand. But when it becomes visible, you'll be in a position to say, oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh, that's how Krishna expands himself into numerous forms, and that's how he exercises Swayambhu Manu sometimes, and sometimes he does this. Yeah. Anyway, we are running out of time. Just make it a quick one. Too many hands. He asked me first, so let him. What is?
Question, I have an answer to explain.
Oh, you have answer to explain? Go. Okay.
My question is, how does one practice detachment
How?
from the lust of the Gita?
I think it's a bit out of.
The lust and desire is the root cause of problems and suffering.
Yeah, detachment comes from knowledge.
Okay.
Detachment comes from knowledge. So by knowledge, by growing knowledge, then you can grow detachment. The knowledge can be either, you study the scriptures and, through practice of scriptures and practice of what's explained in scriptures, you develop the knowledge. Through the knowledge, you can grow detachment. Or through life lessons. You keep touching the fire, it burns and burns. And then you kind of come to that understanding that I burnt myself and I'm not going to touch fire. So by experience also can come detachment. And experience is also it's a knowledge. Experience is a knowledge. So how you get detachment? Through knowledge. Ultimately, that's how you get detachment. Yeah. So you read scriptures, try to understand scriptures in a systematic way, and then you understand how things work, and based on that, you grow your knowledge, and then through that you grow detachment to things. And our goal is not detachment. Our goal is detaching from wrong things and attaching to right things. So we are not, we are not in the business of detachment neither. Yeah. And I'm just saying. So we learn how to detach from right things and how to attach ourselves to the right things. So through the knowledge. Okay. All right. Thank you. It's Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Nitai Go Premanande. Hari Go. Jai. Prabhupada ki.